Yeah, so today I'm gonna put the word out. I'm not gonna be down at the beach today, to watch the waters or anything like that. I'm only documenting this specific area, but you could even use this graph for anywhere in the ocean, really. I just want to give a warning out to the specific area where I made all those rescues a couple weeks ago, and now that the tides have been shifting, it's getting back in that window for where when the lifeguards leave, it could be potentially dangerous in that area that I've been talking about, because the tides have been shifting, and now as soon as the lifeguards leave, that tide that's pulling out, and I'm going to show you a little. It's a chicken scratch doodle like graph here, but I think you'll be able to get the point of what I'm kind of talking about, especially if you're not familiar with the ocean and everything like that, and rip tides and rip currents. I just learned of another tragedy that happened in South Carolina where a dude tried to swim out and save five people and ended up not making it back. So these things happen, and there are certain notorious areas that I'm highlighting. You might not know where they are, and these type of incidents can change. The ocean, the bottom is always changing, but this specific area I've been coming to for years. The wave breaks different. I do notice. Actually, as a surfer, I use rip currents to get out to where the waves are, right? Like the currents that actually are capable of these drownings are the ones that, as a surfer, I actually look for because they rip me out to where the waves are, right? I want to get out. When you want to get out with as least, as a surfer, you want to get out with as least resistance as possible because you actually want to find the rip currents and channels in a lot of areas so you can get out to where the waves are. Whereas swimmers, these situations can be potentially deadly, especially if you're not a really well trained ocean swimmer. You can find yourself at the mercy of one of these really bad rip currents. So with that being said, I'm gonna go and show you my graph today. Um, Something to just keep in mind. Like people just don't even know. They don't even map the tides out. They don't even map the winds out or anything like that. So if you're swimming today and you maybe you're like we just don't want to be around lifeguards. Even me, lifeguards. I would swim in front of lifeguards. I feel safe for someone like me, or surfing when they're around. Like I feel a lot more protected when I see a lifeguard up on the stand somewhere, and I'm just like, that's just reality. Now I don't get that benefit all year long. In the winter time when the surfing population here drops down to maybe 10% of people are doing the whole year thing and going out during the worst. Okay, you have people that surf here year round, but then you don't even have people that go out during the worst swells. And there are even swells where I won't even mess around with that get so big out there where I'm like, this is my limit. This is my level. I'm not ashamed to be like, you know what? Like, yeah, I might want to even here on Jersey, like there are maybe a potential time where waves will get to that 15-20 foot range in the middle of the winter where I'm like, you know what? I may feel good with a jet ski or better knowledge of where I'm surfing. So there's even a limit for me here in Jersey if the waves do get that gnarly, like I would maybe be like, look, I would want a team, I would want training, I would want additional training. So even though I have a very high scale of experience, there's even limits for me out there where I'd be like, you know what? I need training. I need a better board. I want a crew out there. I want a flotation device, whatever else I need because it can get that serious. Um, and I got to make that call for myself sometimes to be like, you know what? This is out of your element in training. So with that being said, I'm going to go over to this graph. So this is basically your tides for today. You had a 3 o'clock high tide this morning, and that happened before the sun came up. So there wasn't anybody really swimming or anything like that. But if you were, you probably have to watch this area right here, which you see how that first bump, like if you were swimming this morning, you probably might feel a little drag right around here, which would be about the 5-6 o'clock in the morning, just as the sun's coming up. You may want to pay attention to some of the rip currents during that time because it's pulling out. Lifeguards aren't there. Usually there's hardly anyone out here this time. Like if you're out at this time, that means that you're a real deal swimmer, and you're probably the one that can handle those rip currents. Like you're probably really training maybe before your lifeguarding shift or whatever's going on. You're a real deal swimmer. You're waking up at the crack of dawn to get out on that swim. So most of these people, I'm not really going to worry about. Now 9 is the dead low tide. Yeah, well, usually when you hit this, like if there's a storm and there's waves, disregard all this because there is no storm right now. Really, I don't see anything going on in the Atlantic. That means that you can get sucked out, pulled out at any time, really, because the waves are kind of gnarly. And if you don't have experience, yeah, you could really quickly be up the creek without a paddle. So the next tide, like if I was lifeguarding today, I would probably look. This is when the lifeguards are on duty. That's 9 a.m. dead low tide. I'd probably start looking at this area right here because a lot of people are probably standing out on sandbars and stuff like that. And yeah, there's no real pull going on. It's kind of like during this, probably from like 8 to 10 o'clock. As a lifeguard, of course, you always want to be on duty and you always want to be watching out. But probably like between 8 and 10 kind of plateaus at that little low tide, and I'd be a little bit more relaxed. But as this tide starts to increase and change, I know that a lot of the beach patrons where they were standing before, they're probably going to be over their head, and there could be a tide fluctuation, something happening in between this time. So between like, I guess like maybe around 11 and 1 or 2, I'd be looking out at the water, knowing that it's changing towards high tide. And knowing that where people might have been standing, there might be water, there might be tidal changes. You might get a pull somewhere for sure. And now this is just for today, actually. So it reaches dead high at 3. So it's plateauing again. 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, I wouldn't really be watching. I'd be like, okay, it's plateaued. The tide isn't really doing much. So now right around, we're hitting, so dead low, like the lowest tide is going to be around 9. So what I'm going to look for, now lifeguards are leaving at 5 p.m. today, right? So that's where this hardest slope is. So in the area where I've been making all those rescues, you probably want to like start like right like maybe an hour into when the lifeguards leave. You're gonna hit that potentially a hard pull. Like everything can change, but if I was in that spot, probably around between like 6 and 7, I would start getting a little like probably like 5:30, 7 o'clock is where I'm gonna be like, okay. That is where I need to pay attention because that's where that hard slope, like you won't see it as much and people will be like, oh, I was fine, at 5. And then all of a sudden you hit that hard slope that starts pulling out and like, yeah. And then you'll plateau again at the bottom, probably between like 9 and 11. If there was still daylight and hypothetically, if I was still like lifeguarding or watching the water, that's when I start breathing easy again around like 8, 9 probably, through like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So it's basically the mid tides is when you really, but honestly, something can always happen during any tide, anywhere. But this is for the specific place that I've been watching, between Seaside Heights and Seaside Park. And then tomorrow, this is going to shift 1 hour. So if it was 3 o'clock here, I'd put a 4 here tomorrow. And then I put a 4 as the next high tide. This would move to 10. These are estimates, by the way. They're not like the exact time, but they're just, I don't put the time because to break it down easier. So this will be a 10 o'clock dead low, and that's how I would kind of map things out, right? So that's just basically how the tides work. But here today, for instance, another little added thing is that the south wind is supposed to pick up. So if these tides are correlating to the spot, it means that somebody can basically go out on the beach maybe 100 or 200 yards to the south of where I'm at. And if that side current starts sweeping, people never pay attention. People and kids get lost all the time because of these side currents, and they sweep you, and you look up and you're like, wait, most people don't even pay attention to these side currents until they're swept. And that side current, because the winds are supposed to pick up out of the south, within maybe like 5-10 minutes, without you even noticing, you can be in the rough spot. It can pull you. You can get pulled by the side current, and even you can experiment with side currents as to how your skill is. Because if you can't keep up with the side current swimming, then that means you're not going to be able to keep up with the rip current, right? Like, go try to keep in line with whoever is watching you in the water, or whoever your friends are, or wherever you are. Pay attention to the side current, because if you can't keep up swimming with the side current, the rip current, I don't even know, the rip current is way worse, because that's when all that water is sucking out. And when I see people not being able to keep up with the side current, that's usually a good indicator. Like, if they can't stay in one area, that's a good indicator that they're not going to be able to keep up with the rip current as well. Is when they're trying to fight that side current. I'm watching them and I'm like, they can't keep up with it. So what they do is they go out and then they get pushed by the side current into the rip current, which is like 100, 200 yards down the beach, and yeah, this stuff can exist anywhere. Just giving a little update. Be careful out there today, even if you're anywhere, pay attention to these things. I don't want to look on my social media and see that there was an incident right where I'm trying to get the word out, or anywhere really. I mean, it is the ocean, and I'm sure a lot of these spots do exist, these rough spots, but this is just a specific one that I'm highlighting. Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to add is just pay attention also. I mean, I'll never say swim alone and swim without lifeguards, but if you were swimming this morning, this first tide, see how it's got a smaller hump to it? It's probably less dangerous than this one. It would probably be less dangerous to swim during this time than this time. Just by this first tide doesn't really have much of a hump. It's early in the morning, and then you go into the PM hump. And this is why a lot of people have been like, well, it was nice all day. We didn't know, going to the higher tide, this is not as dangerous, but you do still got to pay attention here. But then lifeguards leave and you're hitting this second low tide of the day going towards low. And look at that slope. It's a lot more than that slope right there. That's what I'm trying to illustrate as well, is that lifeguards are going to leave somewhere around here. Now, the other thing is you got to worry about the side currents. Most people don't understand is the side current is what pushes you up and down the beach. A lot of people don't pay attention to the side currents. So if you have a strong side current, either coming from north to south, generally this time of year, we have the side current that's common is the one. So typically, when, like, there is supposed to be side winds forecasted between 10 and 20 miles an hour this afternoon. So that means that you'll get a little bit of a side current today that can push you into this rip current. So yeah, that's definitely going to be hard to keep up with. So expect to be being pushed from south to north. And if you're not a good swimmer, and like I said, like, if you are not going to listen to me and go swim without lifeguards, and you haven't been born and raised in the tides and in the ocean and really into this kind of stuff, yeah, you could really be putting yourself or someone at risk that you know and love, because maybe you have the skill to swim out there, but how do you know if someone you love doesn't? And to watch them perish right in front of you would not be a good thing, and not be a something you gotta live with for the rest of your life. Because I was strong enough, I was able to go, but that's a lot of times what happens is that you get that person, and then you get people that want to follow them, and they have this false sense of security that person is going to be able to help you. The good swimmer of your group is going to be able to help you if you run into trouble, and that's just if you have any doubts, don't go out. When in doubt, don't go out, right? That's the main that's the main thing about swimming without lifeguards and everything like that. Um, and yeah, you're gonna run into trouble with things like that. You know, people think that these things don't happen. Where I've, you know, being around the water, I'll tell you that they do happen. And I mean, I've proof to the world now, you know, to say, hey, pay attention to what's going on out there, you know? Like before you decide to go out without lifeguards, become a little bit of expert, nerd out on stuff like this. Know what's going on out there. You know, if you do want to swim that bad without lifeguards, you know, it's just like as I became a surfer, I was doing my research, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't like pushing myself really. You know, I was gradually, and I probably got lucky in a lot of ways where, you know what I'm saying? But now that I'm here to be like, wow, I've seen so much in my life, you know, to be like, all right, I might as well just get the word out there on these kind of things that happen. I mean, you know, you see it so much and it's just like, okay, you know, now it's time to do my part. As far as like, I do my part on the rescue scale, which you've seen, and then it's like, okay, well, let me try the information. And I know a lot of people watch me right now. I know they always know what I'm doing and up to, but I'm like, can't stress this enough.